A senior House of Lords member in Britain has demanded that peers involved in scandals be immediately suspended from the so-called upper house in British Parliament. The comments made by a former chairman of the Labour Parliamentary Party follow media reports that Deputy Speaker Lord Sewel had used the services of female escorts and consumed illegal drugs in his flat near Westminster in July 2015. Lord Sewel earned a high salary and rarely paid for accommodation, travel or entertainment. He allegedly used hard drugs and prostitutes, despite being married with 4 children. Ironically, Lord Sewel was also directly responsible for upholding standards in the House of Lords, so his actions have affected Parliament's reputation internationally. Meanwhile, Britain's law enforcement agencies are under investigation over claims that they covered up child sex abuse by former British Prime Minister Edward Heath. All of this further erodes public faith in politicians.
You get 200 days that have lasted instead of extended.
Okay, so
That's
I know it sounds incredible. I know.
200 a day. So how, that is, it's the my
No, I
work
can
gets
tell you
me
that-
200 a day
Yeah.
to buy lunch.
it's not lunch, lovey darling, it's paying for this. We could do with some nice little young Asian lady, I would have thought tonight, but never mind. Sort of look innocent, but you know they're whores.
Body.
Animal you are.
It's disgusting, isn't it?
What impression does the British Parliament portray internationally? How surprised would the public be to find a cover-up of sex abuse by a former British Prime Minister? And how can the abuse of public funds be fixed? These are the simple questions we sought to answer. Now, Lord Sewel had a high salary and almost never paid for travel, entertainment or accommodation. But he did take illegal drugs and used the services of prostitutes, despite being married with 4 children. How do the British public feel about this? We found out.
Disgusting, absolutely, because we're the ones that pay. I don't now because I'm retired, but we're the ones that's paid all our taxes. For people like that to do things like that is terrible, absolutely terrible.
Personally, it doesn't bother me either way. It's down to his boss to take the action, what's necessary. So I feel. But him going to prostitutes, no, that's his personal life. It's nothing to do with me.
I think a standard should be set by politicians, and I think generally in all walks of life, I work within a team, and I felt if I didn't behave properly, what example? So I think that they should be above and beyond us because of all the problems before as well. So I think it's disgraceful, really. I think it's really bad behaviour.
As long as he's not doing it in Parliament, I mean, that's his business. It's what he wants to spend his money on. But if it's illegal drugs and it's illegal prostitution, then yeah, it doesn't really set a good example for the rest of us who are basically under the thumb, told what to do every day and live by these rules, and slowly having our money eroded and taken away and all our rights eroded. And he's going, yeah, I can do whatever I like and run naked through the streets sniffing coke and yeah, with the prostitutes. So yeah, it's a bit of a hypocritical situation, really.
Yeah, I did come across that actually. Obviously, it shows you what kind of people are in charge and what kind of people are running this country. So obviously, it's a concern for us. It's a concern for everyone. We shouldn't have such people in power. We definitely shouldn't have them in the Parliament.
It's really uncomfortable for us to see someone like that is actually supporting to make the law. Yes, so I think the government should definitely look into the whole Lord system and rethink about the whole thing, because they are not elected, are they?
Well, I'm sure that what he was accused of was the truth. There is a feeling these days that there is a sort of witch hunt, an incessant witch hunt. But yes, okay. However, the fact that he resigned may be the wrong term because these people are not elected.
How do our experts feel about Lord Sewel's actions, given his status as a senior British parliamentarian?
Well, it makes me feel uneasy. It's certainly not a good look. More from the fact that not that he's a member of the establishment, but the fact that he's a man of nearly 70 who's married with 4 children. And he thinks that taking drugs in his spare time is a worthwhile pastime. So what does that say about our sort of family values if a man who is obviously on a very large salary and he's earning all sorts of other benefits from the job decides that taking drugs in his spare time is something that should be a role model for others?
I feel that this whole scandal absolutely underscores the complete gulf, the complete rift between the working poor, ordinary people in this country and the politicians that are supposed to represent them. Here's a guy who's using taxpayers' money to fund all of these outrageous things that we can all have a view about, but the double-edged sword, the irony if you like, is that this guy is tasked specifically with upholding certain standards in the House of Commons and the House of Lords. And the fact he's using taxpayers' money at a time we're being told there is no money and we have to bear austerity for the so-called deficit that actually the common people, the people of this country didn't cause, the fact that this character can see fit to use public money like this is an absolute disgrace, and he should feel the full force of the authorities, in my view.
In video footage, Lord Sewel boasts that the substantial expenses he's paid from the public purse are used to buy illegal drugs and pay for prostitutes. Do you feel that British parliamentarians care about people's money? That's a question we put to the public.
No, I think that's just plain cold wrong, really, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, the fact that he is spending those funds on what he's doing there is one thing, but to obviously brag about it as well is a completely different story as well, and it probably makes the whole situation a lot worse than what it probably would have been anyway.
Well, yeah, definitely. Don't get caught. Yes. Yeah.
Why do you say don't get caught?
Well, it's our money, isn't it? So, you know, he shouldn't be, if he's using their money to go to the prostitutes and things like that, taking drugs, no, it's not fair if you look at it that way. But him doing it, I don't, you know, that's his choice. It's up to him.
I would say no. I would say that's a sort of a slap in the face of everybody who's either voted or said you're supposed to be leading a country. You know, you're supposed to be an exemplar of what's going on in the UK.
Well, I wouldn't expect anything less for people in the House of Lords, so yeah, that's pretty much.
It gives a very poor opinion, and you know, for every taxpayer, I'm a taxpayer, and you know, there's always going to be, whatever walk of life you're in, there's always going to be 10 people, one person is going to do it.
Well, very unhappy because we pay tax. That's not what we pay tax for, and that's not what he's there for. He's there to, you know, run the country. He's supposed to run a system, and if someone like that can do something, you know, absurd or unbelievable like that, then what do you expect from the normal public?
If he was telling the truth, it's gross, and if he was joking, it was a very bad joke.
Not at all. Not one bit they don't. They don't even care about us, let alone the money. They're not doing anything right, are they? So, and especially the House of Lords.
To what extent does the evidence show if British parliamentarians do care about the public's money? We asked our experts.
I think superficially they care about perhaps the perception that their money is being spent unwisely, but that's perhaps only to do with the fact that the British public is very acutely aware of misspending parliamentary allowances. Having said that, there are lots of good parliamentarians. I worked in the Parliament myself, and there are lots of good people who are very aware that the public has a very low opinion of politicians, and who obviously aim to make that better. But it's a very big establishment, very big institution, and 3,000 people work there, and it builds a sense of entitlement that they can do whatever they want in there and without any repercussions.
I think some of them do. I think the public could be forgiven for thinking that the vast majority do not. I think there's a huge level of hypocrisy and double standards regarding the use of public money. Even if we weren't to talk about the scandal of Lord Sewel and the money he spent the money on, we seem to have money for wars, We seem to have money for private companies as the welfare state gets chopped up. We have money to give to companies to take over public services. We have money to increase the salaries of parliamentarians. We seem to have money for everything, in fact, except for the actual people of this country, the people who the politicians are supposed to exist to serve.
Lord Sewel was in charge of upholding standards in the House of Lords. We invited the British public to consider what impression Britain's Parliament portrays to the rest of the world.
Really bad. How can I explain it? It's difficult to say. They're supposed to listen to people like him, and how can they when they know that they're doing things like that? How many more are doing things like that? How many more of them?
I think most people would laugh at it, really. You know, oh, another one got caught, and that's it.
It can go one way or the other. You know, you've got good parliamentaries, and you've got how can I say, ones that are in the middle, ones we're a bit unsure of, to see what value they can really bring to us as a community. So if we're having someone who can control so many things, but then on the other hand they've got another side to them, saying that they're spending money on drugs and life of luxuries, which is obviously our hard-working earned money, then that can, as I say, it can split. It can make a big divide. It can make a huge difference.
Well, it depends how much they know about British Parliament. If they, if they know enough about it, they would know that these people are quite scandalous in their activities outside of their work. So across the world, I guess they probably hold it in high esteem, but I guess the truth should come out, and they should know the truth about politicians and people in the House of Lords.
I think it does, because it's now in the media, but my question is whether it should be in the media. If there were public funds and he was quoted talking about using such funds, then I think it needs to be exposed. But if it's him in his private life going about doing those things, I personally don't have a problem with it.
Well, it's not very good, the fact that obviously he's in place to obviously make sure that everyone else behaves themselves. So obviously for him to not do that as well is a bit contradictory. But at the same time, I'm sure the same sort of issues occur in parliaments all around the world. So I don't think we're any worse than any other country in that regard.
It's unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. I mean, these people are, as you say, he was supposed to uphold standards, and there we are. It's just sad, and he should know better.
Our experts gave their perspective on the impact which Lord Sewel's actions have had on the standing of British Parliament internationally.
That's one of those beautiful ironies that a man put in place to be in charge of standards later turns out to be the one who doesn't have any standards. So you would say that it's like putting Dracula in charge of the blood bank, but the Parliament is a great institution, one that British people should be proud of. It's a great model for parliamentary democracy, and it's a model that's been exported around the world and copied all over the world. And so it should only be right that parliamentarians uphold that reputation, and obviously the actions of this gentleman does not do that. But we should take a more longer view of it, and certainly there are many good aspects to Parliament and the democratic process in Britain.
I think it portrays the absolutely wrong impression. We love to herald ourselves as the British Parliament being the mother of all democracies. We love to talk about exporting this perverse style of democracy to other countries in the form of bombs and death squads unleashed throughout the Middle East. So the idea that, this is seen to be acceptable, it's going to completely damage the confidence of the British public, which was already eroded.
Britain's law enforcement agencies are being investigated to see if they covered up child sex abuse by former British Prime Minister Edward Heath. How surprised would you be to find that there had been a cover-up? That's what we asked the British public.
Not at all surprised, not one bit. But it would have come higher and higher and higher, wouldn't it? If there was anything about him, they're obviously not going to make it public. But personally, I think that the police force are at fault. Really, I do.
Why do you think that?
Because so many people have gone to them with these stories of abuse, and they've just shooed them off, haven't they? if somebody told me a story like that, I would think, my God, you know, I would go a bit further about it. But they haven't, have they?
Not surprised at all, because I'm sure it probably, you know, has gone on in the past, cover-ups. When someone's in that high position, yeah, they wouldn't want that to come out at all. So, yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I won't be surprised because this happened many times, not just in this country, but also in other countries. And my worry is this: if they were covered up, who covered them? Were they also implicated? That will be another question. So if maybe there were members, high ranks of the police force who were prepared to cover it up because perhaps they themselves had been involved in certain incidents of sexual abuse.
If it turns out they were covering up, not at all. Again, endemic of corruption, and I think as we become more aware, I think as we become socially aware and as the internet exposes a lot more, and I would say probably, you know, it's different now to when it was 25 years ago, I would say, yeah, you're going to find more and more because people are more aware of what's going on the internet, and you know, you've got all these high-profile cases going through because people are more aware about, you know, I can make a complaint about that now, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was some kind of cover-up, if there was a cover-up.
I don't think I would be, because I think that if you're in the background and you're a part of Parliament, then I suppose no one from the outside like myself can actually see what's going on. We don't know what the rules are. We don't know what things can be bended in terms of covering up things. So I wouldn't be surprised, because as I say, not everyone's perfect, are they?
No, I wouldn't be surprised because it's not the first time we've seen such cases come up. It's something that's been going on for a long time, and it probably ain't going to be the last time either.
No, not at all. I think, yeah, this is quite well known. A lot of sort of judges and high-ranking people in society are guilty of those crimes, and they get away with raping children, to put it bluntly, as that. So yeah, not surprised. Quite a cynical view of the world I have, but I guess that's the world we live in.
No. I mean, obviously there's nothing that can be proved, but I'm sure there's a lot of things along the same lines that have obviously been covered up as well. And it'd be nice to get to the bottom of it, to find out what happens, and obviously try to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
Not considering all the, you know, the recent few years, all the information that's coming to light on child abuse by people in position of power or celebrities. It wouldn't particularly surprise me, and I think it certainly needs to be cracked down on.
We put the same question to our experts and asked them how surprised they would be if law enforcement agencies had protected a former UK Prime Minister from child sex abuse claims.
I wouldn't be remotely surprised if the law enforcement agencies and the police found that there was a cover-up of child sex abuse or any other malfeasance in Parliament. I think the 60s, 70s and 80s in Britain was a very negative time, and a lot of bad things, a lot of corruption went on. But I do think that we live in more open times these days, possibly as a result of the proliferation of media and so on. I don't think that such a situation could arise again in England, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me at all if it was found that in those decades large amount of corruption was covered up, with the various institutions of the state playing a role in sort of maintaining the veneer of normality within British politics.
My solution is that in addition to having a thorough police inquiry, we need a transparent body inside Parliament that members of the public can have some sort of authority over, perhaps even be a part of. We need full transparency, we need an absolute disclosure of where public money goes, and where there's crimes been committed, they absolutely need to be revealed, they need to be laid bare. People need to know about this. One of the solutions might be to abolish the House of Lords, or perhaps have a voting system, because currently in the House of Lords you're just given a peerage. You can just be put there. There's no electoral or democratic process involved. So we need transparency, and to be honest, we need to review the House of Lords as an institution. We need to look at what its role is, and we need to think about the function that these so-called individuals play in our society.
Britain's MPs and Lords now have a long record of abusing children and abusing public funds. What would be the public's solution to all this?
How would I solve the problem? Stop their money. That would be one thing. Not cover for them, so not have them covered so much. Their backs are covered for everything, aren't they? Really, I mean, when it comes to children, I'm absolutely against anything happening to a child. Anything. I don't know how anybody can touch a child. I really don't.
Have the right people in power, have a better judgment of who we allow to run our country. That's partly us voters too, and obviously the people that choose these people. And if someone is corrupt and they've been caught, they should be fired immediately.
It's a matter of educating these people. You know, we keep hearing of these atrocious things like £300 a day, whatever they're getting in the Lords. You know, hopefully one day people will get the message and stop abusing the system like that. But you know, implementing new laws, etc., you know, just educate these people. I don't know. Common sense will prevail, hopefully.
To be perfectly honest, no. I mean, I think every person's got their own, can be corrupted to their own degree. So what can you do? You can only vet a person to a certain degree and hopefully hope that they do the right thing. You'd like to think these people are put into a position of power. They won't obviously abuse that power, but that doesn't seem to be happening. The only thing I could suggest is obviously policing them a lot more than what they are at the moment, and again trying to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
The only thing we can do is, I suppose, if they really want to gain the trust of us again, the public, then if they're willing to give like a yearly summary of what they've spent on our money, and you know it's been checked through properly and confirmed, and no one's actually fiddling, using it inappropriately, then that possibly could help. That might all make us feel a whole lot better and trust them more.
Can our experts offer a practical solution to resolve the abuse of public funds and children by British parliamentarians?
Well, if I had a solution for those problems, then I think I'd be being paid a lot of money by somebody. But those are two very different problems. The problem of child abuse in whether it went on in Parliament or elsewhere, is obviously a much more serious allegation than just misuse of public money, which I have to say is probably also quite widespread. I think the only solution for allegations of child abuse is a full and thorough public inquiry, and I'm confident to a certain extent that we can achieve that. In terms of misuse of public or misappropriation of public funds in Parliament, that's a slightly different problem. But I think that the scandal of the parliamentary expenses around 2010 certainly opened the public's eyes to a lot of that, and I think it's probably a better situation, a more open situation now than it ever has been.
My solution is that we need full transparency in the Houses of Parliament and the Houses of Commons. We need some sort of fresh body with authority that is going to allow the public to be able to keep focus on these people. We need to know where money is being spent. We need to know what these people are up to. We need to know who they're meeting with. And when there's a scandal like this, the public absolutely have the right to have full disclosure, to understand what's going on. This scandal is not new. It stretches back many, many decades. And there's an irony in the media where much of the media, they talk about historic child abuse. They talk about Cyril Smith. They talk about Jimmy Savile. These people are dead. There's every reason to think this network is still operating today, so there's every interest, there's every reason for the public to know about this. We need full transparency and we need more disclosure as to what these people are doing at all times.
British Parliament sets itself up as a beacon of ethical politics. Yet, with all the scandals, including child abuse and the abuse of public funds, Parliament feeds a lack of trust in itself in the eyes of the British public. Nobody likes a hypocrite, especially in politics. British Parliament will continue to be accused of double standards as long as it preaches probity to others, while its own members behave in ways which it has prohibited for everyone else.